Called the whistleblower out by name recently in that interview. Now, are you certain that the alleged whistleblower is who you say he is? Because none of the news outlets out there, the mainstream news outlets, have any confirmation about their identity. Is there something that you know that the nation doesn't about this individual that can confirm their identity?
You know, I haven't actually been alleging or saying that this person is the whistleblower. I was asked about a person, Eric Chiaramella, who the person interviewing me said was a whistleblower, and I said, I think this person should be interviewed, Eric Chiaramella, and I think he is a material witness to the Joe Biden White House, to the Obama White House, because he was there at the Ukraine desk. This has been widely reported. Whether or not he's the whistleblower, I think, will be determined when he comes in to interview. But I'm not saying absolutely one way or another, but I'm saying it has been reported that he's the whistleblower, and it's also been reported that he was there in the White House when Joe Biden was traveling to Ukraine and when Hunter Biden was making $50,000 a month from a Ukrainian oligarch. So I think regardless of whether or not he's a whistleblower, he should be brought in as a material witness, because there are questions as to whether or not he knew of the corruption that was going on with Hunter Biden, whether he reported it to his superiors, or whether or not he had anything to say about the conflict of interest. Because the whole allegations against President Trump are that it's inappropriate for him to look into the corruption of the Bidens. And I actually think that it's the job of the president to look at corruption before dispensing foreign aid.
Right, I do want to get to the Biden topic in just a moment, but this inquiry was launched by a whistleblower who, of course, was not on that Ukraine phone call, but much of the witness testimony that we have seen in these transcripts and now heard publicly as of today confirms contents in those transcripts. So why reveal the whistleblower's identity? Do you think that's important?
I think his identity is important for a couple of reasons. First of all, the whistleblower knows something that 50, 60 other people in the White House knew, and he has an opinion that it was wrong. Well, 50 or 60 other people have the opinion that there was nothing wrong with the phone call. So if someone's going to make an allegation based on an opinion, you ought to hear it directly from them. The other thing is that I don't believe it was legal for the whistleblower to have this information. Now, he can't be prosecuted. And I agree with this. The whistleblower statute protects the whistleblower. But the person who leaked the information to the whistleblower is not protected by any statute. And it's widely being reported that we know who the leaker was. And if the leaker broke the law, if it was illegal for the whistleblower to receive this information, I think whoever leaked it to him should be prosecuted and or dismissed from their job. Because if you can't be trusted to keep the private contents of the president's conversation private, then you really shouldn't be working for the president.
And do you think that publicly identifying this person might be dangerous and discourage other federal workers from coming forward in the future, as some critics are saying?
I'm actually a fan of the whistleblower statutes and believe they should be expanded and made retroactive. I offered a unanimous consent bill just the other day on the Senate floor to make it retroactive so Edward Snowden could come home. I think Edward Snowden was probably the greatest whistleblower of all time. But I think there's a lot of fake outrage on the Democrat side now because they claim to be concerned about this whistleblower, but many of them actually think Edward Snowden should be condemned or put to death or put in jail for life. And so I think they have a mixed up understanding of the whistleblower statute. So yes, I do think whistleblowers should be protected. I myself have been the victim of political violence. I was there at the ball field when Steve Scalise was almost killed. I had a staff member shot 10 feet from me. Bullets were, flying in all directions when I was at the ball field. So I'm aware of political violence. I had 6 of my ribs broken by a guy who hates President Trump and wrote hateful stuff about him online. So I'm aware of political violence, and I think it would be terrible, and I hope nobody will even consider that. But at the same time, if you're accused of a crime in our country, the Sixth Amendment says that you get the right to defend yourself and confront your accusers. So we have the whistleblower on statute on one hand, and I support it, but we also have the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution, which says the president should get the right to confront his accusers. And so I don't think that any kind of statute can overcome the Sixth Amendment. I think the president really deserves to be able to bring in his own witnesses, and right now with Adam Schiff basically vetoing Republican witnesses or presidential witnesses, I think he's making the so-called impeachment impeachment proceeding in the House into a sham, a charade, and nothing more than a partisan hoax.
Right. And Democrats are also saying that there is, in fact, a quid pro quo. It amounts to extortion and bribery, essentially, is what they're saying, and they could use that to draft articles of impeachment. What's your response to that?
I think the American people want there to be a fair standard for both sides. So Joe Biden threatened aid if he didn't get what he wanted. He wanted a prosecutor fired, which many say that prosecutor was looking into Hunter Biden's $50,000 a month he was getting from a Ukrainian oligarch. So he was actually asking for quid pro quo. He said, if you don't fire this prosecutor, I won't give you the aid. Let's say that that's the allegation that's happening now. How is it any different? If anything, I think the president has an argument to be saying that he wasn't threatening the aid. But let's say even if he were, shouldn't they be judged by the same standard? So Joe Biden goes scot-free and then would decide that it's an impeachable offense for Trump? I think the only thing that's clear here in Washington is that both sides seem to be manipulating foreign aid and trying to use it to get investigations or to end investigations. So Senator Menendez and 3 other Democrats sent a letter to the Ukrainian government saying, you know what, if you don't continue to investigate Trump collusion with Russia, we will reconsider our aid. Basically a threat to foreign aid if they didn't continue investigating President Trump. Well, then Senator Murphy was there a month ago, and he looks at the cameras and says, if you investigate Hunter Biden, I may consider my support for your aid. So it sounds like both sides are threatening the aid to get either an investigation or to end an investigation. And I frankly think that something both sides are doing, they should be judged equally, and we shouldn't say, oh, it's wrong for President Trump to do something like this, but it's okay for Joe Biden to do it. So I do think that ultimately the American people are going to look at this impeachment proceeding and say, it looks like it's partisanship.
And you know what? I wish we had more time to touch on some other topics, but unfortunately we are out of time. But Dr. Rand Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. We certainly appreciate your time. Thank you.